Hello everyone, welcome to Zaref Game Dev. In this video, I am going to create the Snake 2D game in Unity. So you have already played when you were young. It was a phone, and the snake moves, and it tries to eat the food. And depending on the movement, will move top, down, left, right. And we cannot move in the opposite direction we are moving. And whenever we eat a food, will increase the snake size, and if we hit any of the position we have already reached, or where is this, where the snake is present, will die, and it will increase the score. So let's by creating the Unity project. So here I have created the new project, and I added the prefabs folder, the scenes folder, and the scripts folder. And in the scripts folder I have created the game manager script. So let's create a new scene and let's call it gameplay. So let's save the new play. Let's delete the sample scene. So after doing that, let's add the title. So UI text, and we'll call it title. Title is just good. And let's set the game size. So let's set it a little portrait high, white, and for the canvas, instead of overlay, camera, camera. So it's going to be scale with size and will match with height equally. So this is just going to be the canvas, and for the title, let's make is one is the width 1000 by 150. Let's make it, let's position it at the 00 center for now, and let's think font size to title is going to be here. Let's make it 40. And now let's stop. So let's put 75, and let's add the two start and the quit. So let's create the UI then, and let's call it start. So it will just restart the game, and we'll set the text to start, it bold, size should 96, and start, let's color transfer and increase size. So it's here, add this afterwards, and let's, and in X direction let's position add negative early. Let's duplicate it again, call it quit, and inside the quit change the text to quit and position it towards the right. So instead of negative, let's make it positive 3. And for the title, at the center, so size is a little larger, 5. So this is for the and let's add the event manager also. So click empty, call it event manager. On the event manager, we'll add the functionality for the game start and the game. So let's add the game which we have created, and let's open the game manager script. So inside Visual Studio, I've opened the game manager script. So I'll open, instead of the start in the update, let's create the public void game restart, and the public void game quit function. In the restart, just do the UC engine dot scene management dot scene manager dot load scene, and in the quit, just do application dot quit. And before quitting, that we're checking inside the Unity editor. So if Unity editor, the editor dot editor application dot is string and so this is it for the start and the functions. Let's add it as a listener to the start and the quit button. So let's go inside Unity, and for the start, let's set the transition, and on the on click event listener, add the game manager, and this one's for the game restart, and the next one is for the game quit. So let's see if it is working. So when we restart, the scene here should load, and if we quit, the game should quit. So this is for the game restart and the game quit. Now we need to spawn the players. So to spawn the players, let's position the main camera at the 7.5 in the x-axis and negative 7.5 the y-axis, and I'll change the size so it can uh, view a pretty large part of the area. Now let's create a 2 right inside this. So let's create a 2D right square, and we'll position it at 0, 0, and let's change the color. uh, let's make red and the blue. Then so inside the game, position pretty much at the center, and let's call this start. Call the text is large, and as you can see, if we duplicate it 50 times, it will create a grid, and we'll call this, and let's save this as a prefab because we need to call in the game. So we have saved it as a prefab, and we can access the color and the transform property. Now let's delete it, and we need to create this in the game manager, and we'll install. So let's go inside the studio, and at the start we need to get that object. So we'll do a serialized field game object, and we'll just call it piece, and after that we need to store that game objects. So it will be a list of game objects, and let's call it piece. And to store that game object's position, instead of using a vector to, I'll use a struct because it will be easier and we'll be able to easily. So public grid, and we'll use a public integer x, y, and we'll create a list of grids, and we'll call it and need to set the size. So it will be a grid int size will be set to the initial length, which is 4 at the start, and let's add the awake function. So inside the awake function, first we need to do is set the piece and the position. So piece equals to list, and positions equals to list of grid. And now we need to set the size. So the size is going to be 4. After setting up the size, we'll instantiate the game. So for int I is equals to 0, I less than size. And after doing that, first we'll create a game object reference, and let's call it temp, and we'll do it as instantiate, and we'll instantiate the piece. So after instantiating it, what we'll do is we'll create a temporary position, and we'll call it new grid, and inside here we'll set the x coordinate to 0 and y coordinate to negative I because it goes downwards. And after doing that, we need to set its, so we'll do temp dot transform position is equals to new vector 3, and we'll pass that dot x position dot y. And for the z index, let's set it to -1, so it's at the front. And now we need to add it inside the positions, so position dot add, or don't need to add, we need to insert it at the start. So the 0th object will be at the end of the list, and when we insert the head, which will be at the 4th position, so it will be inserted at the start. So we'll insert it at the 0th position, and this is temporary position, so at the end it will be inserted at the last index which is 3rd, and we will insert it inside the pieces, so pieces dot add, and similarly we'll add at the 0th index, and what we need to add is the temp, which is the game object. So after adding this, so instead of add, and so after we have inserted all this, we should be able to see the 4 game objects. So let's go inside Unity and let's add the piece as the game piece, and let's hit play. So you should be able to see the 4 game objects at the start. Now, whenever the game updates, it will move in a direction. So we'll store that direction in a grid, and at each tick, or at each that for turn, will increase its position. The rest of the pieces are going to move, uh, like the last piece text will change to the next text. So let's create that. So for that, we have an operator or the coroutine, and we can add stops there, and we call it every tick. So stop for 1 second and call that. Let's create that. So let's go inside the studio, and to move all these objects, we have its positions, and we also have reference to the game object. So so let's create enumerator, and we'll call it turn. At update turn, we don't need any parameters, but what we'll do first, we'll here return new wait for a second, and we'll wait for 0.25 seconds. And after waiting for 0.25 seconds, first thing we'll do is set each index to be the next index. So we'll start from size -1, and we go till we have is greater than 0. So it will go till 1, and will decrease it index, and after that we will set the position at that index to be the position at the, so we have stored it in the first direction. The head is at the 0th position, and the tail is at the last position. So the last position, I equal to I. And after that, let's make just move downwards. So we'll say positions at 0 is equals to grid, and here pass the x equals to positions dot x, and y is equals to positions at 0 dot y, and will subtract 1. So at each tick, it will move every piece by one direction, and the previous pieces will move to the next piece. So after that, what we'll do is we'll call this function. So we'll do start coroutine. Inside the start coroutine, we'll pass the update turn. So when we need to do the update turn, we'll call it in the awake at end. So we'll call start coroutine and we'll call update turn here. So we should be able to see the moving four pieces. So let's go inside Unity and let's see the pieces. So when we hit play, it should be okay. We didn't set the transform dot position. So after setting up the positions, let's go add Visual Studio. After setting up the position, set the transform dot object. So do it as for, and here will 0x for I less than size plus, and this at the ith index, and for that we transform dot set it to 3 and pass position at I dot x and at I dot y, and the z index is going to be the negative. So it will set up the position. So after doing that, now let's go. So it should object and it hits. So let's not let the snake go beyond the points. So let's do that. So let's go inside Visual Studio and after setting up this text position, let's add, let's create the functionality for because instead of adding or subtracting or changing the position, first we'll go add a grid direction. Let's add the size. At the start, we set the direction here, 0, 1, set the up and date, don't add it. Yeah, so the code. So inside the awake, first we set up the directions. For the direction to be grid and x is 0 and y is going to be 1 because after that, inside the update, check if we have pressed WASD. So if put dot get key down, we are going to press 4 dot. Let's move forward. So if it is down, we are pressing the left button, set the direction equal to, will set it to direction if direction dot x not equal to, so if the x position is not equal to 1, then we'll set it to a new grid. So x to 1 and y to 0. But if we are already moving one left, so if we are moving towards the right, then not move. Since copy it again, let's add it for D. Side D, check move towards the right if we are not moving towards. So if it is, set the direction and similarly W. Here we'll check direction dot x y. If y -1, so if we are moving backwards, not move forward. 1 is not -1, then we'll move forwards or to the up direction. And is not -1, then if it is -1, then move in the direction. So similarly for the s, here we'll check s is backwards, direction dot y not equal to 1. If it is not equal to 1, set the direction the s -1. So after we have created that, we should be able to the of adding as a minus, add the direction plus direction dot x plus. So we should be able to move the player. Let's see if it is working. So let's save it. Let's go ready. Let's see. Now if we click this, we'll be able to the direction. Left, we right. So the snake is moving. Now let's bound the snake at the position. So it will always be for the start. So if the index goes out of range, the position, whatever it go inside, go where we pass. So if positions 0 dot x, at 0 dot x, if it is less than 0, then we'll change the position at 0, 3, grid, where pass the x coordinate towards the phone. If it is less, and y coordinate. Similarly, if it is greater than 4, so if we are moving beyond the 4, and after the add for the y, first we need to check if it is greater than 0, because it goes from 0 to -4. If it is greater than 0, then we'll set it x going to 0, x and the y position, we are going past 0, so we need. And similarly, of greater, it is less than 15, then will, after doing that, it should be able to the player in the given inside unit. And let's see if it is. So let's play and start it back towards the whatever line is. So the player we are able to play, and now we need to add the core of food. So to add the food, we'll just use same game object, but we'll set it to a different color. And to add the food, we put its position side a grid and call it food. And whenever we are getting past certain foods, so sometimes long, and we have multiple. We added multiple scores, but can't increase the length. Tail goes past that position. We'll need to store. It will have a list of grid codes. Reference that will have a list of game objects, and it's the, let's just call it food object. After we have stored in the food object, we'll remove it from the food objects list and put it in the piece after change. So it will start moving with this. So let's create. So first, let's instantiate the food at a temp. So let's the grid to store that food. First, it's going to be grid and the current foods location, and then the list of grid for if we have already eaten that list of foods. So whenever we the head goes past that position, it will be stored and game object, and let's call it food object. And we need to add the food. So the food's going to be new grid. Let's position it at the center, which is x equals to 7, and the y position is negative 7. The list and the for the objects. So foods equals to new list of grids, and not sure it happens every time. So I just created these three variables: the grid for the foods, of grids to store that foods, and list of game objects. And similarly, the food objects are going to be stored in a new list of game object first. Now, after we have instantiated all these players, add the food object. The food objects will just create a temporary created the game object, and let's just call it and just create as an title state, and we'll change its transform dot position. So current food dot position is going to be 3 food dot x, food dot y, and -1. So it will be at index. After that, let's set its color. Set the current food dot get component dot color. Let's set it to a red color. So one one for the red, 0 for everything, and it to be visible. So we'll reference it and object. So the food objects dot add it at start position or at last position. So we'll just use. So after we have added that, we should be able to instantiate. Now, after instantiating that food, let's see if it is. So let's go and so there should be no errors. Have a food at a location. Now, whenever we this food, we should be able to instantiate food at some. That's why I have recording it in the afternoon. Uh, so let's instantiate food whenever the position of the head, the zeroth index, reaches that position. So let's go inside Visual Studio and we'll do it at start. Inside the update turn, after the field return, before changing the position, check if position at 0.x is equals to dot x and position at 0.y equals to food.y. So there's go not going to be index error. We already have position 0. The food is also present, and after that, what we'll do, add it foods dot add current food, because we need to store it and the reference food as a zeroth index inside the food objects. Object is to set the food to be a new grid, and inside the grid we'll pass the x and the y position. X going to be random dot range. We need to set it from early. Here make it negative at the y position. So it will instantiate at a random position, and after doing that, we'll spawn a new game object, new food. The piece. Let's copy current food. So the new foods are going to be added at the first index, and after doing that, where did my add it here? We need to check valid, so that, and it will return a boolean that is valid position. So in here we'll pass a grid. Let's just call it temp. Or so here first we return in the conditions what would each check grid temp in position. So if it is at any of the previous position, then we'll return. If temp dot x equals to dot x and temp dot y and will return true. Else at the end it will okay, we need to return false because it's not a valid. Start is a valid tool. So let's just pass that variable, and here we'll check or At the end, it's going to be to here choose length. We are going to positions count and check match.x equals to I.x and y equals to dot y. Then we'll return true. So return. So it won't be a valid position as a match is. So that is a duplicate. We need to check first index. Let's pass this index here. So where were we? Creating the object. Code. So we'll do while if is an invalid position is valid position of food, then we'll do set the food to new. It will always spawn the food at some new. So let's see. Let's go. Let's set. Now when are the reaches be able to install a new. Now what we need to do is just change the color of this food and add it to the check. If we have reached, then we'll call a condition of can grow. Grow is going to be like whenever it goes past this index, so get this index, call the latest food and we'll change its color and add it. So let's create that. Let's go inside Visual Studio. We have added a reference for that game object. Now we need to check is first. We'll check if the text or the text which last. We need to check before we do that. Call it as rating for each before we update the turn. So here for we need to check if first what we need to check if foods dot count equal to 0. So we have not eaten any foods. So at the start it will be at 0 and only when the index goes past 0 it will have some values. There it's adding as a new. After we doing that, we'll check if the positions at the side dot x equals to the foods at 0 dot x, which is the first food we have eaten, and similarly at 0 dot y equals to foods at 0 dot y. So if it is same, then what we'll do is we'll just add a trigger. We are going to call can grow, let it false, add a trigger, add size, add a trigger. So let's add a trigger for hash. And at the start we'll set can grow to false and has given finished false. Can grow going to false and has finished. For that, after that, do will set can grow to trigger is going to be called. Yeah. So if we are the position which is at the tail currently recently have added, so it will only match the recently food we have added. Then can grow will be set to. Now we need to change that, call it, add that food to the current list. So let's go to routine. If we are before or after we are set. So after before we are setting up the position to add it to the piece, we'll check here. Can grow and go to false. First we'll do is position dot add the food. That's what we are going. Remove food stop add. So we have referenced out text. After that, add its color of food objects of 0 dot get component we get is color dot color equals to color. R is 0, and after that we need to add food objects of 0 and remove it from food objects dot remove add. So it will be removed from the food objects and be able to the next. After that, what we need to do is be able to, yep, able to increase the size of the snake. So let's see if it is working. Always need to. So let's hit play, and whenever we are eating a food, it goes past that. We'll add it to the current snake. As you can see, it is added at the end of the list. Now we just need to check if the head is colliding at what we did at it. Size plus plus and can grow. So if valid is equals to 100, I think maybe I know what happened. Let's add the game for now. Let's check it again. problems. There are multiple foods. Let's say trades. One that eat third. When we eat two objects, there's some for, and we should I'll check it again. So let's go inside Visual Studio and let's check the ad for the game over first. Add it to the food thread. That is an invite a new level equal to 0, and position matches that can grow its index that we that can grow. So standing it from foods, setting up the color can grow is set to false and are increase. And let's check. So first we need to check for the valid position. Already created the what we'll do check if not valid 0. Here we need to then that has game after if the game has finished then just yield the break. Just breaks this coroutine and it won't execute the start code. Now the game has work. Let's go. So let's increase it first. The game has finished because we tried to move. Now there's some problem. Yes, let's revisit our code again. I'll try it, but it's fixed. Uh, I type the question. I'll say I fixed. Let's do the debugging. So inside the debugging, there should not be any errors, and the errors it should have is if it equal positions at 0, the head is at the food position. It's not getting added to the food. At the food, we are adding the food. Quick, it's fine. are set as food, and we are instantiating that new food and adding to the food object. Dot remove at and food objects dot remove at. Remove and adding it at this. There should not be errors. Start quick. The direct awake we are already in objects. The update we can change here. Is correctly for int I is equals to 0, I is less. Here we are increasing the size. If can grow is set to false, and whenever we have food again. Okay, I got it. That has can grow. Here's the problem. Got it. Instead of position set 0, we need to check for the position set size minus. Now it should get fixed. See, there are just tiny errors in the it's just a video, but if you are creating some large games and find error, write the code. Never know where you did the error because it was just a problem with. So let's hit play and the game should work fine. I didn't record it again, so you don't need to check it. The index was set to 0 instead of checking the size minus 1. Let's now play and let's see if it is. So if we get past the position that we added to the snake and problem with the indexing. So that was it for this video. If you like the video, do like and subscribe the channel. And if you want more games, do comment. I'll try to guys like for watching and see you guys